And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 148th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday evening, June 30th, 2020, where I am your host, Noah Freeman. On the docket for tonight, we're basically just going to have a fun podcast talking some over and unders. We're going to focus on IU football and IU basketball and give a bunch of over and unders and give our opinion. We've got a couple polls going currently on Twitter, so hopefully you're listening to this podcast pretty recent, if not live, so that you can try and vote in those over under polls and let us know your thoughts when we get through all of them. Say all three of us are wildly off on what we assume some of these over and unders are. Give us some comments. Right now, the Hoosier Sound Twitter is still currently down. When Twitter kind of messed around with shared accounts last week, for some reason our account was kind of just got caught in the mess, I guess, if you will. So when we messaged Twitter to try and fix it, they're like, oh yeah, 7 to 10 business days before you can get a response back from us, since there's no way to contact them. So we're like, all right, great. So right now you can follow everything on Indiana HQ. You should be following both anyway, but that's sort of our quick updates. But here with me tonight, I am back after my second wedding. Nithin came up with this idea. So Nithin, how are you doing? How did you also find all of these over-unders? Did you just kind of make them up, or did you find a specific website that gave you these numbers?
Yeah, sure. First of all, glad you're back, Noah. I think the podcast really missed your presence the last couple of weeks. I think it was just too off the rails when it was just me and Matt.
They were good podcasts, though. It's kind of nice having the two-person dynamic at some points.
Look, there's no reason why those of you listening can't go back and listen to previous episodes either. Just throwing that out there. They're more than,
since there's no live sports, a lot of these can carry over a couple weeks. You're not missing anything if you miss a podcast a week.
No, absolutely not. They're sort of applicable to any sort of time and whatever you're going through right now. But yeah, as far as the over-unders are concerned, a lot of these are off the top of my head, based off of things like stats we've seen from players and just different sort of hot button debate topics among IU fans on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. A couple of them do come from, certified online, wagering sites, things like IU football win-loss over-under. I think there's one or two others in there that if you really wanted to, and I don't, but if you really wanted to, you could go out and put a penny on it. But it's going to be fun. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. And look, nothing like talking a little over-under action, especially as sports, hopefully, cross your fingers, knock on wood, do whatever superstition you have to do. Hopefully, as sports in the United States at least start picking up, in the next month or so.
Matt, how are you doing? I know you've got a big trip coming up, so.
Yeah, I do. I'm going out to Yellowstone tomorrow to start working out there with some of the lodges. Coronavirus, depending on whether they stay open or not, but that's a whole other discussion for another day. But I'm very excited to start that and can't wait to get out there with all the bison and bears and wolves and no internet. It's going to be great.
It wasn't Yellowstone, but there was a woman that did not have the best decision-making, if you will.
Yes.
Did you hear about that with the bison? Yeah, you don't want to get close to them. They're still wild creatures. And if you haven't seen that story, a woman got a little close to a bison, and you can kind of predict what happened.
Yeah, the lady that cuts my hair sent me that this morning. I was like, have fun, smile. And I was like, thanks.
That's funny. They're cool creatures, though, especially to see them in the wild, too. I got to see them in the wild before out yonder over there.
I'll get to pick out IU's next mascot.
That is true. You can literally handpick the physical mascot that's going to come into the stadium like you guys talked about last week, right?
Yes.
All right, let's get into some IU football over and unders, and I'm going to kick it off with a really easy one. Over under number of games. There's basically only two options at 12.5, so you can either have, unless you make the college football playoff, but I don't think even the most optimistic people think IU is going to be in the top 4. So it's really, are you going to be 12 games or a bowl game at 13 games? Over under 12.5. I am easily taking the over. What say you?
I was looking at this, and I'll be honest. This is the one. Let me just throw this out to both of you. Okay, I didn't say this earlier. This is the one over under where personally, I think coronavirus can come into the debate. Okay, everything else after this one, and maybe Noah, you're going to change your answer after this, but every over-under after this one assumes a normal football season and a normal basketball season. With that said, okay, Noah, with knowing that information, would you change your answer or would you still say over 12.5?
Well, if we're not assuming a full season, and actually assuming all of the various circumstances that are going on, I'd probably take the under just barely, because I think even if we have a season, there's going to be at least maybe one game just given, maybe one team has an outbreak, which is very plausible if it's not in Indiana itself. And I feel like there's just going to be a lot of throwaway games. I don't think everyone's going to be a nice solid round 12 number of games going into basically the whatever version of postseason each team has. So I'm going to go the under just because, I mean, also you do have seasons where you play like a Florida team that has a hurricane happening and then you aren't able to reschedule that game too. So it's not actually uncommon for any season to have 11 games and then 12 for the bowl game. So assuming that, I'll go under, but if you're not assuming, I'm going to say definitely over.
Yeah. This is the one over-under that you guys are going to hear for the entirety of the episode that includes a possibility of coronavirus affecting the season. So given that, I'm actually going to take the under also, Noah. I've been on record on this show saying I'm not optimistic about the college football season going off cleanly in the fall, or even if they push it back. I just don't really see a full 12-game regular season slate plus postseason, whether it's a bowl game or whatever, take place. So I'm going to take the under also. I think you're going to see a truncated season if it even goes off. So that I'm going to take the under. Matt, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, since you both took the under, I'm going to go over because I am presuming that we'll make a bowl game. And also, I have faith in the fact that if, let's say, a team gets an outbreak, the season will be put on hold. And because there's not really going to be that many fans in the stands, and look, college football stadiums aren't being used for anything other than college football, except for random cases like Tampa Bay, where they share the stadium, or USF shares the stadium with Tampa Bay. That might be a rescheduling issue, but still they only play on Saturdays and Tampa Bay plays on Sundays. So I'm going to say that they'll play an entire season. Now, coronavirus dependent on when they finish the season. I think they might have to take a break or so before ending up maybe finishing it in the spring, but who knows? It's not going to mess up the NFL draft. It's not going to mess up people's college careers if they have to push back the last 3 or 4 games of the regular season to April, per se.
Which is it's a very good point that we can mention later, because especially with all the colleges having various degrees of how they're going to come back to school, just IU specifically currently, how we talked about how they're going away after the break and not coming back. They're going in person away, still staying online all the way in from basically end of November to February. That's bowl games basically, and that's the Purdue game as well. So we'll have to see how kind of athletics are affected with that. So to your point, Matt, yeah, like if they end up actually moving it back. And speaking of, the Ivy League has kind of come out saying that they are thinking of and wanting to move their season already back to their football season already back to the spring. There's even been a couple teams in the Ivy League, not some of the bigger name ones, that have already said, hey, we're not doing football this year already. So it's coming down. It'll be interesting next couple of weeks. End up being like, but let's get into the rest of it. Like Nathan said, assuming a full season, all of it just like normal. So Matt, read us our next over under.
So here's the deal. Well, I think Matt's having some technical difficulties here real quick. So I'll jump into the next one. As far as our football over-unders are concerned, the second one is number of wins. Okay, this is like the most common over-under that you see across football or basketball, pros or college. And as far as the wins are concerned, the number we put out there, assuming a regular college football season, and by the way, for those of you listening, you can go vote on our Indiana HQ Twitter account what you think about this over-under. We've got it at 7.5. So, Matt, I'm going to start with you. Right now, on June 30th, 2020, do you think IU football next season is going to be over or under 7.5 wins?
Yeah, look, I think so. I honestly think so. I think they'll just surpass it. I think they'll get to 8 or 9 wins next year. 9 being a very good season. 8 being, look, we have a tough schedule next year. We play with Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. We play some tough road games in the Big Ten. So looking at the schedule, it's not going to be easy. Even if this IU team is the best IU team from top to bottom since I've been watching, and probably since most of you have been watching IU football. Like the Big Ten is going to be very solid next year. You have Ohio State, who's maybe the favorite for the national championship, and coming up next year with their Heisman contending quarterback, and they're trying to replace a running back. But Ryan Day has Ohio State rolling there. Michigan, whether you like them or not, or want to make fun of Jim Harbaugh or not, is always solid and a tough team to play. And we always play them close. And then we played Wisconsin in Camp Randall. So that's, again, a tough game. Wisconsin's coming off of a very good season last year and are almost always good. So, but I have faith in this team. I have faith in Tom Allen that they'll get back to 8 wins. So, yeah.
Noah, as you look at the IU football schedule, over under 7.5, what are your thoughts? Oh, it looks like Noah's skipping out too. It looks like Noah's got a little technical issue as well. Man, this is 2020 in a nutshell, right?
Right.
As I look at Matt, as I look at the football schedule, I'm going to go the other way on this, okay? I'm going to take under 7.5, and it's, again, assuming a full season. Here's why. Last year, Indiana had a 5-star blue chip insurance policy at quarterback in Peyton Ramsey.
True.
And he's not there anymore. And while Michael Penix will probably take a big step forward next year when he's on the field, there's always that concern gnawing at the back of the head of IU football fans. He's one big hit away or one misstep away from getting hurt. And as much as I'd like to think Jack Tuttle is developing at a rapid pace, from what I've seen out of Tuttle, I'm not too confident. So because of the injury concern with Penix, I'm leaning under on this one. And again, I still think IU will get to 6, which, by the way, in a normal year is like a fantastic season for IU football, getting to that magic number, 6 wins. But I'm a little concerned. And like you said, the schedule's tough. It's always tough, right, when you're in the Big Ten East. And there are a couple of games in there where I'm just a little concerned. Like when you think about, maybe going to UConn. I know on the surface, Indiana will be a pretty big favorite in that game, but it's a true road game. Okay, you're facing Illinois this year. Purdue's going to be better with Rondale Moore probably back. And while I'm probably going to pick IU to win each of those games, I'm still kind of leaning towards somewhere along the way they might trip up. Somewhere along the way, Michael Penix could get an injury. As a result, I'm going to go with the under on the 7.5. I still think they'll make a bowl game, but, that's where I'm looking at it right now.
We're changing negative Nancy to negative Nathan over here. Gosh, darn it.
I mean, Noah also starts with an N. I don't know if he's going to be negative or maybe neutral. You can't be neutral on this. So Noah, over under 7.5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, sorry. My Wi-Fi, ever since all this stuff has started, there's just been random moments where the Wi-Fi completely stops working altogether. So I'm back and I should be good. But 7.5, that's an easy answer. I'm not going to be negative, Noah. You've got the bowl game, so technically that's 13 games, and even through the schedule, and even it is a relatively tough schedule, but this is going to be an even better team than last year. Like we've mentioned how it's just a very young team last year, so you see the 8 wins last year and getting even to a better team this year, which it's basically the same schedule more or less every year. You win all the games you're supposed to, which is what Indiana had finally done for the first time last year. You win all the games you're supposed to. That's Western Kentucky, Ball State, Connecticut, Maryland, Rutgers. I'll even throw Michigan State out of there. But even though Illinois is a tough team, should win. Illinois 6, Purdue 7. That's already 7 wins, and then that's a possible bowl game, and then a chance at Michigan State. If you even cut out completely those other powerhouse Big Ten teams, you just need another win in there with a bowl game or a Michigan State. So I'm going to say, especially with a better team, and I know, Nathan, you talked about thinking about injuries with Penix. You really can't assume any of that kind of stuff. So it just kind of happens when it happens. So I'm going to take the over for wins and for wins.
It's not so much it's not so much predicting the injury. It's for me like, okay, if it happens, all of a sudden now, instead of having Peyton Ramsey to back him up, you've got Jack Tuttle. A lot more unknown about Tuttle compared to Ramsey. So, I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I'll be the first one to say that. But as we move on to the next, over under, and Noah, I'll go to you first on this. We're gonna narrow down IU schedule a little bit, and we're gonna look at the 4 toughest games on the slate. IU has to go to Wisconsin, to Michigan, to Ohio State. They also get a home game against Penn State. So, Noah, out of those 4 games, does IU win even one of them? The over-under on the number of wins in that 4-game chunk is 0.5. Does IU get even one win out of those 4?
I'm going to know only for the fact, which means I'm taking the under, only for the fact is that I'll believe when I see it type of thing, that they're going to get a win. Doesn't mean that I don't think that they're going to, but if I were actually placing an over-under on this, I'm going to be under just for the sole reason of I'll believe it when I see it, since it's been forever since they've actually been one of these powerhouse teams.
I'm going to go differently.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to go differently. Okay. I'm going to go over because I think that Wisconsin game looks very juicy to me, especially first game of the season, and Wisconsin maybe being a little, I don't know, not understanding where we're coming from. You know, we're kind of the underdog, and they might be a little bit underprepared, and maybe they got a little too comfy up there in Madison. So I like that Wisconsin game a lot. And then I'm not sure about this Michigan team either, even though I just said to watch out for Harbaugh. So give me those 2 games. I think we'll win one of those 2.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to lean no. Part of it is I'll believe it when I see it, like Noah said. And of course, I mean, just a minute ago, I said that I'm leading towards them going under 7.5. That almost implies that they don't sort of surprise in one of those games. So again, hope I'm wrong, but you know, hey, look, if IU knocks off one of these big 4 teams, it's gonna be a pretty great season, almost regardless of what happens the rest of the way.
So I'll take the next over and under, and the next over and under is Penix starts over under 11.5, pass yards 3,575, and passes for 19.5 touchdowns. So basically, does he start the whole season, and does he continue his form from last season? Noah.
Nathan, do you want to explain this a little more? You actually did some research with a little more background reference to the specific numbers you pulled up.
Yep, exactly. So as far as the number of starts, that's just kind of off the top of your head. 11.5 means in that over-under, you kind of bake in 1 missed game if you think IU is going to make a bowl game. So that's something to think about. But as far as 35-75 at home, you might be like, oh, that's a strange number. It's the number of passing yards Nate Sudfeld had in his best season at IU. So if Michael Penix wants to elevate himself up to that sort of best QB in IU recent history discussion, 35-75 is the mark Sudfeld put up. Passing touchdowns is just kind of a sort of an arbitrary number there. But I'll actually start here, and then I'll hand it off to Noah. I'm gonna take the under on all 3, and I've already said sort of, you know, will Penix play the whole season? We'll see. I'm not sure. I also am a little concerned about the transition in the offensive coordinator spot. You know, he can never go without saying how valuable Kalen DeBoer was to the IU offense last year. He's off the head coach at Fresno State. So, you know, I think Indiana's going to focus a little bit more on running the ball too. Remember, Samson James is going to be a sophomore. Definitely curious to hear what you guys have to say, but I'm leaning under on all 3 of these. Noah, what are your thoughts?
I'll take the over for the amount of games, just because again, I just don't, even if it's just the knock on wood thing, I don't want to jinx any of it. So I'll take that he's going to play at least 12 games, pass yards and touchdowns. I'm going to take the under just because, like you said, he hasn't played a full season yet. He hasn't even played basically half of a season yet. So to see that right out of the gate, he's going to become have a season that Sudfeld did is, I think, a little ambitious. Also because you've seen that he can do something with his legs. You've also got an established running back with Stevie Scott, which means you don't have to pass the ball just as much. So for that, this year I'm going to say that it's going to be an under. In the years after that, I definitely would probably take the over and going on it. But he definitely would be able to. Not saying that he isn't capable of it. I'm just thinking, like you said, Nathan, with the offensive coordinator changing, him being able to use his legs a lot, I don't think he's going to need to pass for basically 3,600 yards and 20 touchdowns.
I agree with that last statement, which is I don't think he's going to need to throw for 3,600 yards. I don't think he's going to get to that mark. I think the way it goes is that it's going to go over on the starts, under on the passing yards, because he's going to make up for a lot of those yards with his legs, like Noah said. And I think I'm going to take the over on the passing touchdowns, because I do believe that because they promoted from within for this offensive coordinator position, that the offense is not going to change crazily. Like it's not going to be an abrupt and just an overhaul of the offense. They're going to maybe adapt some new ideas, maybe tweak a few things, but overall it's still going to be very similar to the offense that Caleb DeBoer ran. Now, is it going to get the same play calls? Maybe not, right? Like we have to see what the new offensive coordinator compared to Kalen can do. However, that being said, I do think that Penix is a fantastic QB, and actually I believe that he'll throw more touchdowns than that 19.5 point. So I'm going to say he's going to throw about 25 touchdowns. So he's going to go about 5.5 over that mark.
I love it. I love it.
I'll take that at total touchdowns with his legs too. All right,
Yep.
Let's move on to who won the week, Nathan. So who won the week this past week in IU sports?
Recently, the Big Ten issued their Medal of Honor, and a water polo player and a wrestler won it for the Hoosiers. Every school in the Big Ten gets to nominate one male athlete and one female athlete. So tip of the cap to Emily Powell and Jake Klimola. Powell's a water polo player who put in a ton of work as far as getting diversity and inclusion into IU's athletic department, and Jake Klimola, a wrestler, did a really nice job as far as his volunteer work and his work off the mat, pursuing a number of different majors when he was studying. So really cool honor for both of them. It's called the Medal of Honor. I mean, there you go. So great job for both Emily Powell and Jake Klimola.
All right, let's continue with the IU football over-unders. The next one, let's talk about Watt Fillier. So we're going to talk about catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns. So over-under 70.5 catches, 1,115.5 receiving yards, and 7.5. And I'm going to start out with the under for all of them. This last season, WAP had 70 receptions, basically 1,000 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns, adding the fact that he's in the conference. He does now actually will have even more of a big arm to help him out. That was the 70 receptions, 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns was basically a very big jump in a typical IU wide receiver season. So and those are pretty ambitious numbers for what Nathan put out with that. So I'm going to take the over just barely. I think he's going to still replicate the season he had last year. But just I feel like 80 catches, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns is a lot when he doesn't necessarily do all of it because they've got some established offensive guys. Matt.
Yeah, I am going to do a bit of a combination here. I'm going to go under on the 79.5 catches. I think 80 catches is a whole lot of receptions, and I don't think he's going to get that. I'm going to go over on the receiving yards and over on the touchdowns, which I think is fair. I think he's going to get a lot more targets down the field this year with a quarterback that can actually throw the ball more than 20 yards accurately, throwing to him for more majority of the year. So give me Penix to Watt deep bombs, and this is me going with a 25 touchdowns for Penix. So he has to throw a bunch of touchdowns to somebody, and that person's going to be Watt for me. So I'm going to go over on receiving yards and touchdowns and under on catches.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. I'm gonna take the over on all three. I love Whop Phillier, you guys. This is a guy who last year I thought was exceptional, and I believe he missed a game against Michigan, and so those numbers really could have been bigger.
Yep.
James Hardy, when he was at IU a few years ago, put up those kind of numbers as far as sort of around 80 catches, around the 1,200 yard mark. I think Wop's going to reach those levels next season. And Nick Westbrook moved on from the team last year, as well as Donovan Hale. I think there are going to be a few more opportunities for Wop to be a real focal point of the offense. And remember, with a great season, he has NFL draft, stock on the line. So I'm going to take the over on all three.
One with Taiwan interceptions at 2.5, and getting a bunch of interception season is actually a lot harder than it always seems for football. If you even look at the NFL, there's players that even get through total in a 16-game season. I'm going to take the over for that, though. I'm just excited to see him play. I think he's the defense has ramped up in general, and he's the kind of player that when the defense is really good around him, he's the kind that can actually come through and make those big plays. So I'll take over the 2.5 to get at least 3. And what do you think?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I love Taiwan Mullen. I think this is a guy who went way under recruited. When I look at 2.5, though, I think that's a hair too high. I think he's going to end up with 2, but that's it. So I'm leaning under. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Literally just stole the sentence out of my mouth. 2.5 is actually a really good over under for this because I could see a world where he has 3 or 4. I can see a world where he has 1 or 2, and we're still a very good team. So I think it's going to be 2. I think, look, corners, they get interceptions, they get picks, they get passes deflected, they get passes broken up, what a PBUs. I do think he's going to get about 2. So it's just going to be under 2.
Yeah. And now let's move on to the very last over-under on our football list. And it's kind of a different one. Last year, Indiana's sack leader had 5 on the season. So my question to both of you is whoever leads the team in sacks, whether it's a guy like James Head or whether it's a guy like Jerome Johnson or whoever, will they have over or under 5.5 sacks? Will the team sack leader have over or under 5.5? I'm leaning over. I love James Head. Matt, what's your pick? Are you thinking over 5.5 or under for the team sack leader?
Team sack leader?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody hits 5.5. I think they hit 5. I like James Head. I do. I like how our defensive line isn't super deep, but I do think it's better than it was last year. However, that being said, I think it's going to be spread out more between people. I think you're going to see maybe 3 or 4 guys with 3 or more sacks this year. So give me the under, but I think we have more sacks in total than we did last year.
Give me the over on DeMarcus Elliott getting in there. That's going to be my take.
One
on DeMarcus Elliott.
Yeah, one guy I want to mention, though, before we move on, keep an eye out for Bo Robbins. He was a redshirt last year, big, highly touted prospect from Indianapolis. So just keep an eye out for him.
Yep.
Just wanted to throw that in there before we move on to basketball.
All right, let's move on to some basketball over and unders. And again, if you guys thought any of our takes were completely wrong, or you really agree with us, comment in some of the Twitter stuff. So go see us on Twitter and comment, hey, I really like this, or I think it should be this kind of over under. But Matt, why don't you kick us off for our basketball over unders? And this one is actually on our Twitter page as well. If you are listening to this within just under 24 hours of the podcast coming out.
I think this is probably the highly contested, most highly contested over under that we have on this list, and that is Christian Lander over under 10 points per game. So Nathan, I'm gonna hand off to you first. What is your opinion? What are your thoughts? What's your prediction on 10 points per game over under Christian Lander?
It's funny. We've looked at Archie recruit some of the highly touted 5-star guys the last couple of years, right? And Romeo Langford and Trace Jackson Davis, it's not like they've had to really fight through a lot in order to get the ball, in order to get playing time. I mean, some might say, well, they could have gotten the ball more. That's not what I'm trying to argue. Romeo and Trace Jackson Davis both put up pretty big PPG stats in their freshman season. I'm going to go under on this, though. It's just point guard. Christian Lander also moved up a year as far as the reclassification goes. I think he gets close. Again, close. I don't think he tops it, though, so I'm going under.
All right. I did, and I should have even done this earlier for the over-under football 7.5 wins. Like I said, we put that one out on Twitter. I forgot to say at least the results as of now, and 87% are taking the over, so 87% of people are agreeing with Matt and I, and the negative Nathan over there is with that measly 13%. I'm going to take just like Nathan, it's this a hard one just because we talked about how his role is going to increase now that Justin Smith is transferred. We talked about that on literally the podcast right after that, how he's a guy that's going to get more minutes just by positions and stuff moving around, and he might have to score a little more. But 10 is double digits is really hard. You think about just the scoring impact Trace Jackson Davis had, and he was a couple points over obviously this year, and that's basically Christian Lander, like you said, Nathan, as a point guard, kind of having that impact. And at least as of now, the Twitter masses are disagreeing with us because 65% are taking the over on that. So Matt, are you going to agree with the Hoosier Sound, or are you going to agree with at least 65% of our poll?
I think 65% of people have a little bit too high of expectations. Christian Lander's a very good player. I think the over-under for him should have been how many assists he gets this year.
Yep.
Because
5.
I think
5.
That is the more
5.
important stat compared to points. I think the threat of him scoring is going to be enough for him to create points for people like who we'll talk about later, Jerome Hunter, Race Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis, you name it, right? So I think Lander, 10 points per game is a little high. I think he ends up around the 8.5, 9 points per game, which, by the way, is right about the same spot as somebody who scored a lot last year, Rob Finney, right? It's just around in the same neighborhood as him. And I think Rob will increase his points as he gets more comfortable, as he showed last year, taking spot jump shots. Lander will be at about 8.5 points per game. So he'll be under, but he'll still score. But more importantly, he'll be much more of a playmaker.
Matt, over under 5 assists for Lander.
Oh, that's hard. I'm going to go just under at 4.5.
Okay. I was about to say I could have made it 5.5, but that works too.
I'm leaning under on that too. I think Finney, Durham also in the backcourt. It's just wait until his sophomore season if he's still around, which I think he will. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right, I will take the next basketball one, and though it's going to be total wins at 23.5. Last year, the team had 20 wins, and remember, at least it's not like football; where the postseason doesn't count for wins, so it's going up to the postseason. So really, the NCAA tournament wouldn't have mattered. And I'm still going to take the over on this because I think even people had wanted to see just a couple more wins from this team this year, and the team's getting better. And I think they're going to be better than they were last year. So I'm going to take the over, just barely though, just at about that's it. Nathan had a good number for this one. So Nathan, what do you think for this one?
And Noah, just to be clear, we're doing regular season wins. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure. So, this is a tough one because while I think IU will be better, the non-conference schedule, which we haven't gotten yet, the rumor is that it's going to be tougher. Archie Miller told Don Fisher that in an interview about a month ago. He said it's going to be the toughest non-conference schedule IU's played to this point. I'm going to go just under. Once again, I feel like a lot of these are really right on the fence. I'm going to go just under. I think they'll make up some ground in Big Ten play, but I think the non-conference will maybe either even it out or hurt it just a little bit. So I'm leaning under. I feel like I'm going negative on all of these. I don't like it. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been feeling that way, but I'm going to go positive on this one. I think this is actually an easy answer. This is over because I think we play more games next year than we did in previous seasons. We're going to have a better team, and we're going to play more games. You add the games that we're going to play in Maui. When we didn't play in Maui last year, every team plays 3 games plus however longer you play. Give me the over on the wins at 23.5 next year, regular season.
I like it. Okay. I mean, that's going to be close. I mean, especially,
yes,
given the improvements on the roster. So I'm excited to see how that one works out. Eventually, you could probably find an over/under number on online, but we're not quite there yet. So, Matt, earlier, in fact, just about 10 seconds ago, you mentioned the Maui Invitational, and a few years ago when IU was in it, it was a bit of a house of horrors for the Hoosiers, a Hawaiian house of horrors, if you want to go full alliteration. Coming up in the fall, or I should say in the winter, right? November. I think November's technically the fall. How many wins do you guys think IU's going to pull off in the Maui Invitational? It's an 8-team bracket. Everyone plays 3 games, regardless of wins or losses. I'm going to plant the over/under at 2.5, and I'm going to take the under. I don't think Indiana is going to pull off a Maui Invitational title. I think if an online site actually put an over/under on this, they'd probably put it at 2. But as far as 2.5 is concerned, I'm leaning under. I can't remember who's in it off the top of my head. I think either North Carolina or Kansas, and I think that's maybe the one team that's going to trip IU up. So I'm going to lean under. Noah, you're looking at a pretty interesting Maui Invitational field. Are you going over or under 2.5?
I'm gonna agree with you, and I'm gonna go and take the under just because, especially at the beginning of the season, okay, that's right at the beginning of the season that they're not going to be fully meshing together, especially with not a significant but not a small amount of turnover. They've had a few positions turnover. About a third of the team is turned over. So, I'm going to take the under. And usually IU is like the second best team always in a Maui bracket. But obviously they've beaten teams like Kansas coming out of the gate. But I'm going to say that they're going to take the under and get 2 and trip up at least somewhere.
I'm going to take the over because I'm a positive thinker, and that's what I do. No, I seriously think we'll take the over. I do think this team, to counter your point, Noah, I think this team is a lot more well meshed together. I think they're going to have a lot of really good chemistry on the floor. And in fact, they do have a lot of experience playing with each other because most of the incoming recruits and some of the freshmen played with each other in high school and AAU ball. So that being said, give me 4 wins at the Maui Invitational. So that would be the over at 2 from over 2.5. So I'm taking the over.
Yeah. On that though, the Maui Invitational's it's an 8-team field. So you can
right.
you can pull off a max of 3 wins. But Matt, you're saying they're gonna win it. They're gonna go into Maui, pull off all 3, and they're
doesn't every team play 2 games though?
Every team plays 3. Every team plays 3. No matter what. Yep. Every team plays 3. But hey, if you want to take the over, be my guest, Matt. I mean, if IU pulls off a win at the Maui Invitational, I think people might throw a parade just for that.
That's true. Yeah, I'm taking the over, the 3, not 4. Well, anyways, on to the next over/under. We got NCAA tourney wins at 1.5. So this means we think that we're going to make the tourney next year. If we don't make the tourney next year, we're going to have a bunch of podcasts for you on that when that arises. But anyways, we're going to say they have a really good season. They, like I say, surpassed the 23.5 win total that we just said that we go over. So they make the tournament. NCAA tournament wins over under 1.5. Noah.
I'm gonna. That's honestly a pretty easy answer for me, just because that's basically, actually it's 1.5, not half a game. So, that very first game is pretty easy. Going to that set, like the weekend after the Thursday Friday games, it's basically if you're gonna get to the Sweet 16, anything can happen in that first game. I'm gonna take, at least since Archie and his IU team, even though he's done it at Dayton, since no one now has been to the tournament, I'm going to take the under, just win that first game, lose that second game. But again, anything can happen in the tournament, and they could easily get to the second weekend. So, Nathan, do you agree, or do you think they're going to get to the Sweet 16?
Oh, man. Okay. The NCAA tournament is so unpredictable as far as the type of matchups you get and how well you're playing in March. I'm going to take the over. You know what? This is my chance to bring some positivity to the show. I'm going to say IU makes a Sweet 16 run, if not further. I think this team, look, we've talked about it in previous podcasts. This team just could quite possibly mesh a little bit better. And hey, maybe even Archie adds a player or two with the available scholarship spots. Who knows? That's really a less significant thing. Let's do it. IU's going to win at least a couple games. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I love what I'm thinking there. Matt, over or under 1.5?
Give me over. Give me the Sweet 16. I'm being positive today on IU sports. I am really excited for this next season, and with everything coronavirus related being so we need some positive energy in our life. So I'm going over.
I say these are a lot easier when we're just talking about it on a podcast, and we're not putting actual anything of value to a lot of these picks. We'd probably think a little bit more if we were doing some of that. But before we get into our next one, as we start to wrap up here, Matt, do you want to give us your social media shout out of the week for IU sports?
Yeah, sure. So my social media shout out this week is to the basketball program, and more specifically to Jordan Geronimo and Anthony Leal, who got to be stars in a movie about them moving into Evolve. So if you guys don't know where Evolve is, it's right across from the stadium. On the other side, it's by Stadium's Crossing and where the old cheerleading house used to be, if you're privy to that information. Anyways, this giant apartment complex they have over there. It's really, really nice. They have like an indoor basketball court and pool and workout room and a bunch of other stuff. So it's a really nice area. And Jordan and Anthony moved in because they're starting workouts with the basketball team and got to move in for the start of their college career. So it's pretty awesome. Again, if you don't know what the IU basketball Twitter is, it's at Indiana Basketball. And then follow us at Indiana HQ on Twitter and on Instagram, and then follow at the Hoosier Sound, even though our account's being a little weird right now, but still do it because we'll be back, I promise.
Yeah, we will. We didn't do anything wrong either. We were just one of those people caught in the crosshairs for some reason. But yeah, all the IU social media accounts, if you don't follow them, are really easy now. Thankfully, that they all rebranded not too long ago, just to make it a little more simple. Yep. But the next IU basketball over under, we're going to talk about some Big Ten tournament wins at 1.5. And honestly, you probably could have made this at half of a win, and it still would have been a discussion. And I'm going to go, and I'm going to have the same thing. Believe it when I see it, under. So I'm going to be under 1.5 wins. Nathan.
It's one of those things, right? Oh, man, I'm going to be ahead of the curve. I'm going to say they knock it. They knock off the monkey off their back. Give me over 1.5. And I'm going to assume they don't play on Wednesday. Even that, I assume they're going to start the tournament on Thursday, win on Friday, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, see, that's I've been positive this whole podcast, but I don't know if I can muster any positivity about the Big Ten tournament at all. I I have been hurt physically and emotionally by the Big Ten tournament. So I'm going under. In fact, I would have gone under if you had put it at 0.5. So again, I'm with Noah. I'll believe it when I see it.
Oh man, this is, I don't know. The Big Ten tournament's just been crazy. But let's go into some individual projections and predictions. Matt, I'm going to go to you first on this. Trace Jackson Davis last year was a 13-8 player. As he goes into his sophomore year with NBA draft stock on the line, I'm setting the over-unders at 16 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, and I'm going to throw a fun one in there. Over-under half of a three-pointer. Does he hit a three-pointer all season? So what are your thoughts on those 3 points per game, rebounds per game, and does he hit a three?
Now, I'll clarify. It's just basically half of a three-pointer total, like the entire year he just hits one, or half of a three-pointer per game.
Yeah. Oh man, that is.
Nathan, which one?
So yeah. My bad. I had a little mic issue there. It's at some
Hits
point
1,
in
3,
the season.
Okay.
Does Trace Jackson Davis hit a three? I'm not saying he's going to go out there and become the next, Kristaps Porzingis or whatever. Nothing like that. The bonus question here is, does Trace Jackson Davis hit a three? So Matt, what are your thoughts on those 3 over-unders?
All right, so let's go in order. I'll walk you through the thought process here. So 16 points per game. I'm going to go at slightly under. I think he hits 15 and a half, maybe 15. Like 16 points per game is a lot of points per game in college. Like that's a good amount of scoring. And I do think that some of the scoring load is going to be taken by people that we talk about here in a bit, and the team's going to be a little bit deeper than it was last year, and they've played together a little bit more, so the scoring should be spread out more. So he scores less. 9 rebounds per game. Give me the over, because I believe that when he's going to be playing a lot of lineups with Race Thompson at the 4 and him at the 5, and he's going to be the main guy that has to go get the rebound. He's going to have a lot more responsibility when it comes to rebounding this year. So give me the over on rebounds. I think he ends up in double figures, averaging a double-double throughout the year. Then 0.5 total threes made. I want to say per game, because I honestly think for his NBA future, he has to average 0.5 total threes attempted per game. So I'm going to assume he's obviously going to hit one of those. He almost hit one last year if his toe wasn't on the line. So give me the over on the total threes made. I think it would have been better if you had asked total threes made per game, because I think he's going to try and attempt multiple threes.
Yeah,
Noah.
Matt, you almost word for word verbatim basically everything that I was going to say. For reference, Romeo Langford hit 16 and a half points per game a couple years ago. So that's basically Romeo Langford output. And just because, exactly like Matt said, I don't think he's going to need to score over 16 points per game. So I'm going to take it under and just slightly somewhere 14, late 14 or upper 14s, mid to lower 15 points per game. Rebounds, I think he hits. You could have probably put it at basically 10 rebounds per game, and I probably would have gone the over, just because he's going to need to do it since IU is obviously losing Duran. They're going to be not scarce, but they're definitely not. They don't have a lot of depth in terms of big guys, and he's just gonna keep growing. And then exactly like Matt said, that's why I was clarifying half a three in general. Definitely think he hits one total three, and again exactly that's why I was like, Matt, you took all the words out of my mouth. He's gonna need to do that for the NBA, because he's the kind of guy, he's not big enough to not step out onto the 3-point line. He's probably won't even get drafted if he doesn't start to make at least some sort of 3-pointers. So even if it was half, I'd probably take just slightly under if it was half per game, but it would still be close to that.
All right, guys. I'm bringing the positivity now. Let's do this. I'm gonna take the over on all 3. I thought Trace Jackson Davis last year wildly exceeded my expectations. I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna understate that. And not so much just on the court. I think off the court too. It seemed like the players gravitated to him. It seems like he really upholds a lot of the stuff that IU fans want in an IU basketball player. So I think he's going to take the offseason and he's going to really put in the work. And I think he's going to hit over the points 16. I think he's going to hit over the 9 rebounds per game. I think he's going to hit some threes too. And it's going to be amazing. It means he's probably going to leave for the NBA, but hopefully it's after a pretty awesome NCAA tournament. So I'm going to take the over on all 3.
This is the positivity we need, Nathan. This is I'm so excited about the positivity I can't even talk. So
he's just not very excited about the football team when literally people are excited about it for the first time in decades. Basically.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. Anyways, we're moving on to another freshman from last year. Freshman in quotes. We got Jerome Hunter, the redshirt sophomore. For next year, his projections are 8.2 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, 36.6 3-point percentage, 36.6% from 3. Now, that was his 3-point percentage from Big Ten play last year. So, I'll take this one first. And I'm going to go over on 8.2 points per game. I said on Trace Jackson Davis's over-under. I think that the points are going to be spread out more. I would say it's just slightly over at 9 for Jerome Hunter because I do think he's going to be hitting a lot of threes. 4.5 rebounds per game. That's an interesting number. I think, like I said with Trace Jackson Davis, Trace is going to have more responsibility when it comes to rebounding. So even though I think Jerome is actually a pretty decent rebounder when he plays, he's not going to be responsible for getting a majority of the rebounds. I'm going to put at his rebounding at around 3. So that'll be under on the rebounds per game. And then 36.6% from 3. I'm going to cop out and say he says he does the exact same percentage this year in total, but with more attempts. And if he keeps that attempt total up at 36.6, that is why his points per game increases. Hence why I took the over on the points per game. Noah.
I'm not going to let you say be even with it. You got to be over or under on the percentage.
All right. He's more comfortable, slightly over.
There it is. All right. No, I'm not as optimistic in terms of that just because that's honestly a lot of points for a guy that's basically still getting over an injury and basically trying to find his way and find his footing into college basketball. That's also for an average rebounder that's not a guy that's under the basket all the time. 4.5 rebounds is a lot of rebounds. So points, I'm still going to go under. Rebounds, I'm going to go under. Percentage, though, I'm going to go over. And the reason why Nathan pulled these stats out is basically this is Justin Smith's minus the percentage. The points and the rebounds is Justin Smith's sophomore season. So kind of think about what Justin Smith was doing his sophomore season. Is Jerome Hunter going to be doing the same kind of thing? I'm going to take slight under for points. Significant amount, like Matt was saying, around 3 or so for rebounds. And then percentage, I do think because you saw a lot of really bad shots from 3-point last year, I think he's going to fix that, and even that's just going to raise it a little bit because his 36.6 is what he did in Big Ten play last year. So I'm going to say that goes up from there.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? I think a lot of IU fans can't wait to see what Jerome Hunter brings to the table next year. I'm going to take the over on the points, and that's going to be it. Okay. And here's the thing, there's going to be a lot of shots available, right? Justin Smith moved on to Arkansas. Devontae Green left as a senior. There are going to be a lot of shots. Even Demezy Anderson, I know he didn't shoot much, but he plays the same position as Hunter as far as being out there on the wing. So I'm going to say that Hunter finds a way to score more than that 8 points per game number. But rebounding, I think, is going to be other players' responsibility. And the 3-point percentage, it's hard to hit 36.6%. So I'm going to take the under on that. Hopefully it's slightly under, but we'll see how it all plays out. I'm just excited to see how he puts it all together next season.
Wait, so you're telling me the 8.2 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game with Justin Smith's sophomore numbers. So are we saying Jerome Hunter is Justin Smith with a better jump shot?
We're going to find out. I mean, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Is Jerome Hunter better than Justin Smith, and you can maybe compare sophomore to sophomore and then hopefully junior to junior as he goes is he in his IU career. But that's going to be interesting. I don't know as much as anyone else does. It's going to be fun to watch.
Right. Yeah, I was only probably being a little more cautious just because he's still getting even like he's playing quote unquote full minutes, but I still feel like he's still finding his footing with himself, his injury, college basketball, all that in general. So I think that might just kind of bump his overall since it's the whole season, basically. And even if he doesn't, the beginning of the season, he still kind of eases into it. It still affects the overall thing. Mm-hmm. But our last one for today, we're going to talk about Race Thompson. Easy 7 points per game, 7 rebounds per game. Points, I think Indiana to be able to succeed is Race averaged 3.7 points per game last year. I think for Indiana to be successful, since it's really just TJD, Race Thompson, Joey Brunk as the main contributors down low. I think Race is going to need to score 7 points, more than 7 points per game for Indiana to have a relatively successful season, i.e. making the NCAA tournament. So I'm going to say over for points per game just because he's got to find his footing, which he started to do at the end of the regular season this past year. Rebounds per game, I don't think he needs to even get 7 rebounds per game. You still got Joey. His strong suit is rebounding. I don't necessarily think that he's going to need to average 7 rebounds per game. And again, that's starting to get into a relatively high number of rebounds. So I'm going to take over for points, under for rebounds. Nathan, what do you think?
Ooh, it's funny, right? Race averaged those numbers in about 14 minutes per game last year. And when you look at his per 40-minute numbers, per 40 minutes, he's basically a double-double. He's basically 10 points per game, 10 rebounds per game. So the question is, okay, do you think he's going to be a 30-minute player, a 20-minute player? That's where it's going to be fun to see how it all plays out. I'm going to go under on the points and over on the rebounds. So I'm going basically the opposite, Noah. It's, I could totally see it the other way too. I just don't know if Race is going to develop anything different in his offensive profile. If he does, that'd be awesome. I'm not sure. But as far as rebounding goes, this guy was a killer rebounder, even in the limited minutes. I think it's going to be great. I think IU is going to be one of the best rebounding teams of the Big Ten next year with Jackson Davis, with Brunk, and with Thompson. I think they're going to be mean on the glass. So that's how I'm leaning. Matt, are you gonna throw something totally different at us? What you got?
Yeah, I actually am. I'm going under on both. I think that he ends up playing around 20 minutes per game because he's going to be in a rotation again with Trace, with maybe some of the new guys. And then also you're looking at Joey and Trace again. So he's going to be rotating around and they're going to be throwing different lineups at different teams. So I'm going to go under on both. However, I have another over under to attach to this for you guys. I'm going to throw this in there at the end. Over under 1 3-pointer made per game from Race Thompson. Because, again, he shot threes in high school. He attempted, I believe, 2 last year and shot them pretty confidently. Or he maybe made 2. I don't remember what the exact statistic on it. But he had definitely attempted more than 2 3-pointers last year. So, over, under.
Or 2 per game.
No, in total. Is he going to make more threes than he made last year? Over, under.
Ooh, it's funny. I'm I'm sorry. No, what was your answer there?
I'll say yes.
Ooh, okay. You're gonna say he's over. Yeah, last year Race went 3 for 10 from 3-point land on the season. I'm gonna say over. I don't know how much over, but I'm gonna say over. It'll be fun to see how it plays out. But I'm gonna lean over. Let's see. Let's go. Let's see Race Thompson bang down some threes. Let's go.
All right, let's do it.
That's one every like 5 or 6 games, so that's not very many to make 4 for the entire season. But let us know what you guys think. Hopefully you had a little bit of fun with us with some over-unders. But that's going to wrap it up for our 148th show of the Hoosier Sound. As always, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you to that live audience for coming out, participating in the chat section. Really appreciate your support. News and updates come through Twitter, no matter where you see the Twitter, whether it's Indiana HQ or Hoosier Sound. Make sure you subscribe to both so you don't miss out on our weekly shows. shows and updates to make sure that you're kind of seeing what's going on, if we have complications or not. But most importantly, if you enjoy our show, hey, have you guys tried to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts yet? Go over there. I mean, it's pretty easy. Even if you give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would preferably not have a 1 star, but click one of those stars. It's pretty easy. And I mean, the only way that we grow this podcast is by you telling a friend, sharing our link. So, hey, tweet our episode, text it to a friend so that we can try and grow this podcast and reach all those passionate U fans just as yourself. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.